Mamiya is and will forever be renowned for their medium format cameras, but it has a following for its 35mm format offerings as well. My only experience so far with it, however, is with this. Now, before we dive deeply into my subjective and anecdotal experience of the lens, let's quickly look at the unchanging nature of the manufacturer's specifications. Information on this lens is quite scarce, so I had to really scratch for that. Format is 35mm full frame. Focal length 100mm, mount M42 screw type mount. The origin, as far as I can tell, is 1974 in Japan, and it was also sold under the Sears brand in the US. It was released in the same time as the Mamiya SX 35mm cameras. Optics, it's a 5 elements in 4 groups. It is coated, but I'm not sure what coating it has. So it could be multi-coating, it could be single coating, I'm not sure. The aperture is a 6-blade automatic diaphragm, and it ranges f2.8 to f22. Closest focusing distance is 1.2 meters. The weight is 275 grams, really light. The size is about 68 millimeters by 2.5 millimeters. Filter size is 52 millimeters, and the price is between $30 to $60. Now, I didn't do a specific excursion with the lens. I just had it hang around my camera bag for a couple of weeks, and I whipped it out whenever I wasn't shooting anything serious for clients, or just when I had a bit of time. In terms of general usability, the lens has a very small form factor for the focal length and for the maximum aperture of f2.8. So it actually fits quite snugly into a camera bag, but it also is really nice if you use an M42 to Canon RF Adapter or any other mirrorless adapter, because it still isn't bulky if you add this much for the adapter as well. The focus throw is quite resistant on my model, but not too much. It's actually very smooth. And by the looks of it, it's about a 180 degree, 190 degree focus throw. The lens is very sharp in the closer ranges. And even at minimum focusing distance, wide open, it's actually sharp. Falls off to the sides naturally. I notice, however, that the closer you get to infinity focus, the softer the general image becomes. This doesn't markedly improve as you stop down, but it does improve somewhat, which points to some form of a spherical aberration possibly. I don't know, the clever people can comment down below. Around f4 seems to be the absolute sweet spot for this lens, and I suspect this lens would work great with extension tubes for macro photography. It's just, I don't know, the way it works, the 100mm focal length, I think this is something to bear in mind. The lens shows purple fringing around highlights, especially when you have high contrast white against black scene, and especially when you're overexposing somewhat. In less contrasty scenes, that is better exposed, the lens shows an actual remarkable lack of chromatic aberrations around the middle of the aperture range. Spherical aberrations does show up in small amounts when shooting wide open and at certain focusing distances. The lens shows vignetting wide open, understandably so, and this disappears fairly swiftly as you stop down to f22. The lens flares quite interestingly in 6-legged star shapes at certain angles, which I quite like. It's reminiscent of a Koken star filter. But it has this additional red hexagonal flare ball, normally quite close to the light source. Some people like it, I'm not particularly crazy about it. The lens handles backlight extremely well, in my opinion. It doesn't haze over or go all crazy. The lens is reasonably fast for the focal length as well, so it makes low light shooting a lot easier. Where the lens really shone, in my opinion, is where the focus distance is 3 to 4 meters or within that range. With a bit of side light. Color-wise, the lens seems on par with most vintage lenses. With other words, it might be slightly muted, it's sufficiently contrasty, and in my opinion, sufficiently saturated. But this is extremely anecdotal, and outside of a laboratory environment, I think one can only speculate. Now, speaking of bokeh, at certain lens to subject and subject to background ratios, the lens does show a mild swirl in the background bokeh. When shot really close up, the bokeh is smooth, but it is all dependent on the background subject and the lighting conditions. But for the most part, the bokeh balls are more like bubbles, and in my opinion, quite pleasing and not distracting. Not that I find bokeh generally distracting that much anyways. So what is my conclusion? It's a very cheap entry to a fast-ish 100mm focal length, and a great result can be had with this lens, especially even in video. It has a very specific feel, and it can definitely be used to great effect in video production especially. But that's it for now, and I will see you in the next video.